And then I started the process of all the testing.
Were you surprised with your
No,
diagnosis?
a lot of it was I was also in one of my classes was music and diverse culture, and one of the things that they talked about was um, people with different disabilities or like different things that happen, and then they ended up talking about autism like as part of the things to know about. And I remember specifically thinking, I mean, a lot of those sound like me. And so I was like, that in between like me being annoying in public, people were just like, "You have like Asperger's or something," which is what another formal diagnosis of autism used to be. Um, and so it just kind of really got me asking questions, ended up doing a lot more individual research on and everything, and I started going to the mental health facility to seek counseling on it as well as like search for a diagnosis.
Wow. So, did it feel relief for you,
It
or
was
a
because it
sort of
was finally
relief?
an answer. You know, it was always kind of it was an answer to the problem. Well, I say not so much the problem, but it gave me insight. It's like when you're wandering around in the desert and you don't know what's going on, and you finally get a map. You know where to go from there. And that's a lot of what it was. Is I
Yeah,
kind of finally know where to go now.
that's great. Um, I can only imagine that doors started opening for you.
It was a very insightful experience.
Liz,
Yes.
I'm sure. How long after Hal was diagnosed were you
Well, I
diagnosed?
met Hal when he was 22.
Yes.
Yeah. Um. So it was about a year after he was diagnosed, and I'd kind of always suspected I had it. I mean, I distinctly remember being about 13 years old and doing some independent research and kind of being like, um, I feel like this fits me, but my parents were pretty against any sort of mental health issues, just kind of in denial about anything that might be different about me.
Same.
So I kind of went through my entire life thinking these things shouldn't be so hard for me because they're not this hard for everyone else. I'm just being weak, or I'm just being lazy, or I'm just being a baby about it. And then yeah,
Interesting.
and then when I got to college, I fit in pretty well with the groups that I chose. But I mean, I definitely still felt like something was different. And after I met Hal, and we started talking about it, I realized how many symptoms I had in common with him. So what I did was, with his encouragement, I went ahead and got evaluated. um, and yeah, it came back that I am autistic. And a lot of people ask me why bother getting diagnosed as an adult, and it's mostly just so that you know you're not broken. Um, you just have a different way of thinking, and that comes with advantages and disadvantages. And that just makes everything a lot easier, and you're a little bit less hard on yourself.
Can't you also find other support groups and coping mechanisms easier if you know what's going on
Right,
with
yeah.
you?
I mean, you can't, if you have a cold and you don't know what a cold is, then how are you going to get help for it? And in a similar sense, even though autism is not an illness and it's not something that should be labeled as wrong, if you know
Yes.
that you're different and you know the ways that you're different, it helps you find more tools.
Exactly. So, was there like an instant transformation, more self-confidence, or was this a process
Um,
where you had to get counseling?
I
Where do you go
really,
from there?
I mean, when I got diagnosed, they advised that I get counseling, but really, it just didn't do anything for me. I don't think I was really ready to get any sort of therapy for it. I just wanted an answer. So, what happened for me was I remember getting diagnosed and getting an evaluation and just feeling really validated. So that might have given me a little bit of a confidence boost, just because I knew that with certain people like Hal, I could be who I was without having to struggle all the time to interpret what they were saying, or to not come off too weird. So it was just good to know that I had a place.
Yes. Yeah. That must have felt good for you guys. So you're basically going through a lot of this together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys have started dating, and just curious how that affects a relationship.
Do you want to talk about it first?
First of all, I have to note that this one guy, his name is Free Candy, and he has a rape van for a truck. I'm sorry. Okay, so one of the things that I feel like that's actually interesting is a lot of times, people that used to be formerly considered like Asperger's, I call them Aspergerians. But like a lot of them just don't seem like they're interested in relationships. And a lot of times, they just kind of don't feel interested in dating, or that they just either feel aromantic or asexual. You know, there's a lot of times, but a lot of them do. But a lot of the times they struggle because a lot of it is issues with social skills. You know, knowing what's appropriate. You know, those sorts of things. You know, there are a lot of benefits to being autistic and dating. Is the fact that, you know, we have to communicate. Like to understand, like we have such individualized needs that for us to really kind of tell the other person what's going on, like we can't really read them. So like, and it comes all to not being able to read people super well. So we've really got to communicate to really kind of work it out.
Yeah, like I'm not going to be able to tell so much if he's being passive aggressive. If he tells me he's fine, I'm going to take him
I'm
for
fine.
I'm going to take him for his word that he's fine most of the time. And so if we're not open with our communication and one of us wants to be passive aggressive, it's not going to help anything. So we basically know from the get-go, look, I can't read super ambiguous things like that. He can't read super ambiguous things like that. So we just kind of are more able to have open and honest communication. And I think with our certain needs or sensitivities, it really helps that we're both autistic, because neither of us invalidates the other by saying, like, look, it's not that big of a deal. Why can't you just eat this food? Or why can't you just listen to this? Why is it such a big deal? Why are you overreacting? Neither of us have that, because we both understand how it feels. And so we kind of also keep an eye out for one another in other social situations. If I notice that he's saying things that are coming off the wrong way, I am usually able to kind of pull him to the side or text him and say, look, I think they're misinterpreting you. Maybe you should try a different approach. And that way we can kind of watch each other's backs.
I think that's wonderful. You know, get buzzwords, and then you can talk afterward as well and understand each other better instead of being, you know, angry. Now, you guys were telling me something one time which I thought was interesting, and this can impact a relationship as well. Maybe we could go back, and we'll come back to the relationship part, and we'll talk about autism. There are special interests. There's different places on the spectrum you could be. First of all, what is the autistic spectrum?
Okay, so there are several different domains that people look at when they're diagnosing autism. And the idea of a spectrum is less linear, so it's not like, so it's not like least autistic to most autistic, high functioning to low functioning. It's just like a circle. So, someone who may be nonverbal and doesn't speak very much may have excellent nonverbal social skills and be great on the internet because they don't have to directly talk to anyone.
Gosh, texting's beautiful.
On the other hand, there are autistic people who are incredibly social, who are just really good at talking to people and getting along with people, but they may have some serious sensory issues. So it's really important when discussing autism to try to avoid labels like high functioning or low functioning autism, because what it does is it takes away the voice of the quote unquote low functioning autism community by saying, well, you're just not capable of making these decisions because you're so low functioning. And for people like us who might be considered high functioning, you take away our disorder. So it's basically saying, we get this a lot. You look normal. You don't look autistic. I would never have known that you were autistic if you hadn't said something. You must be really high functioning.
Does that hurt?
It does, because part of it's like when someone says you don't look autistic, you're assuming a stereotype that's not entirely true. And that's just hard because it was hard enough as it is to get diagnosed, much less when you tell someone and they tell you you don't look autistic, they're basically telling you you're exaggerating or you're lying, and you're less likely to get help unless you look or act a certain way.
A lot of the
and that would not be
the
very
concept
cool.
she talked about with like the linear autism goes back is very similar to like if you were to say someone like if you were to base everyone's intelligence off of their IQ level from either being low to a higher IQ, when in fact Howard Gardner proposed the idea that there are 7 different types of intelligences in the human body, or of the human. So there's like linguistic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, spatial, musical, linguistic, naturalistic. So like people are always smart in different ways. Now some people have more high levels of intelligence in some aspects than others, but everybody's always smart in something. So if you're saying someone's just kind of, oh, well, you don't look smart, well, it's like, well, they're smart at some other aspect of what they're doing, but
it's
not
just
necessarily
a less socially acceptable part.
Exactly.
So we have a question from somebody in the stream
Yes.
there, Hal. You want to answer that? The question is for everyone else. Do the streamers, you guys, have different competitive teams for different games?
Well, I mean, okay, so TGBG Gaming has the UMG, like the MLG level group that we're trying to grind out and climbing the ladder on for Call of Duty. I'm not a part of that one, but I am a part of TGBG Destiny, which is still we're still kind of slowly stretching out in regards to that. So we used to be pretty much a Call of Duty based clan, but now with the growth of different people, getting more people in the clan, we're kind of expanding our horizons in a lot of those ways. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. I really thought he meant something along the autistic line here.
Oh,
Apologies.
it's all good.
Yeah, I could have answered that one. Apologies. All right, we're just doing an interview here, Primal.
Wrath of the Machine.
Hal, Hal's on the team. We did a benefit for ASAN, which is the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, and Hal and Liz here are autistic, and we're trying to educate the community a little bit and talk about what it's like to go through this. There are a couple as well. So can you guys tell us a little bit about what you mean by autistic people often have special interests?
You want to talk about your special interests, Hal?
Okay, so a special interest, the best way to say it is, okay, you know how most people have like what they would call a hobby? Or like something they find fascinating? A person with a special interest takes whatever that is, and it's like an obsession. Like it's all they can think about, or it's all they ever really want to do, like.
Or they can relate everything back to it.
Or they know everything about it. so like one of